This is Councillor Graham Campbell of SNP Socialists, and I bring you greetings from myself and my co-convener, Janis Wilson.
Hello.
Hiya. And this yet another month we've taken off, and absolutely nothing has happened at all in this last month since the general election, other than just about everything. So we start off with the big issue, or one of the biggest issues, I suppose, for us in Scotland, is the fascist riots across England, not to the UK, across England, which have been called UK riots, but in fact they are fascist pogroms against Muslims and refugees and asylum seekers. And SNP Socialists has been party to a statement by the Radical Independence Campaign to have an anti-fascist pro-independence bloc, a demonstration planned for September the 7th in Glasgow. Do you want to say a bit more about that?
It has been, I mean, I don't know for definite. Are the fascists joining us? I think it was one of the ones that was confirmed for Scotland, but I mean, Tommy Robinson at the moment is sunning himself in Cyprus using funds from his ridiculous supporters. But it's very important, I think, to protest or do a counter-protest whether or not they turn up, because it's important for people to see that these people are very loud, very dangerous, very violent, but they're not a majority. So yeah, I think it's important to get out there and just show solidarity with those all over the UK who are being targeted by these thugs.
It should be said that obviously members of the SNP Socialists and indeed the BAME network, I was joined in making a statement on Sunday in the Sunday National to basically appeal to pro-independence campaigners to postpone the demo they had planned for Edinburgh on the 7th in order to join forces in Glasgow. I'm very pleased to say that all under one banner did agree to do that. Great leadership shown from them, and basically the independence movement will be there in force on the 7th of September. Because anti-fascists and anti-racists have to stick together. But I think the point should be made, though. First of all, he's called Stephen Yaxley Lennon, and he sounds far less appealing. Yaxley Lennon, Yaxley Lennon. That's not so chanty on the football terraces, is it? So I call him Yaxley Lennon because that's his name. But Yaxley Lennon is more, obviously, they're not entirely responsible for this on their own. Of course, they're fascists. They are trying to create a classic tension on the streets thing, but they have been built up by years, decades of fascistic propaganda around immigration and asylum, and the fact that they're even using "stop the votes" on these demonstrations and "get the asylum seekers out, get out of England." These are the slogans that are coming from Farage and people like him in the media. So their ideas have been mainstreamed, and therefore these thugs are acting on the streets. And it's strange when you look at how they've been treated. Okay, they've made a big deal. They've arrested 400 people, but if they would just stop oil protesters, they would have been stopped from protesting at all.
Yeah.
If they were anti-racist protesters doing something against the government, they would have been stopped from protesting at all. Somehow Starmer wants to create a secret police state to finally deal with these far-right terrorists, which is what they are, but seems to think that it's okay to jail people
Starmer's Labour is
5 years.
Is Islam?
Peaceful protest.
Yeah. Starmer's Labour is Islamophobic through and through. Just look at his stance on the Middle East and Palestine. It's inherently bigoted against Muslims.
Well, they're not calling out for what it is, isn't it? It's Islamophobia, which you saw that awful spectacle.
Oh, that was horrific.
Was interviewing his wife while shouting down Zara Sultana. I mean, that's a shameful thing. That guy needs to resign now, or they should be firing him. It's just ridiculous how the British media is bad enough how they've been biased on Palestine, but this is Black and Asian people's and refugees people's lives literally being pogromed on the street. And instead of calling out for the fascist reaction that it is, they're calling it protests, right-wing protests. They're not protests. These are attempts to create a racialized civil war on the streets of England, and it shouldn't be allowed. But we've said to people, you can't leave it down to this very, very wishy-washy government to do it for us. We as the people have to do it for ourselves, and have to get out on the streets and show the true nature of of Scotland and showing these people they're not
Oh,
welcome.
absolutely, absolutely. And I think the most horrific thing for me over the weekend was the mob trying to set fire to a hotel full of asylum seekers and then throwing stones at Filipino nurses trying to go to work. To me, that was horrific. And of course, all this overshadows the tragedy that happened with these little girls being horribly, horribly murdered by a British citizen. And it's taken away from that. And that's, you know, and I think to do that, to make it all about themselves and their hatred of anyone who doesn't look like them, that's not protesting against these little girls' murders. It's turning this into some kind of race riot, and it's abhorrent. Abhorrent.
Well, there's so much more we could say on that, but there also there's lots of other things happening. You've alluded to it in the second of our subject, which is Starmer's honeymoon. He's been Prime Minister for a month now, and we've seen we were not expecting very much, but in terms of change, the change word was used lots and lots and lots, and of course Labour MPs, as soon as they had the first test of a vote on the 2-child cap, what did they do? They voted against the SNP's motion to put that in the budget. And these people have not stood up for the things they said they were going to stand up for in the election. So, surprise, Labour have already let their voters down in Scotland. But what's your sort of take on having a Labour government for the first time in,
I think I hate to say I told you so, and I don't want to go down that road, but to target pensioners and children in the first month of his government is just sickening. He doesn't care about pensioners freezing. He doesn't care about children starving. So you've got to kind of ask yourself, what does his government care about? Because it's not the change
capitalism
that anyone was assuming it would be. It's a change for the worst. And to suggest that anyone earning less than £12,000 a year doesn't need a £300 winter fuel payment in winter, while they get their £3,500 payment to heat their houses, is just incredible. I mean, I'd say abhorrent. I'd say insane. There's no words to describe what a Labour government has done to 1 million pensioners. It's just incredible.
But they're already showing how anti-working class they are. Right from the bat, from the get-go, they're showing you where they stand on this. They're not doing anything about bankers' bonuses. They're not doing, they're letting them off on taxes because they're not raising any taxes from them. So they have a choice, and suddenly they've discovered that there's £22 billion hole in the budget for this year. I mean, we were underestimating. We were saying there was an £20 billion gap over the 3 years, but they've had to admit that the big red black hole is there in the budget for this year. That is extraordinary. That translates into potentially £2 billion worth of cuts for Scotland just in this year's. So if they pass that down the line, and because we're an awful disaster in England too, but of course it's going to affect us. So this is austerity carrying on when we're still the 6th richest country in the world, when the capitalists are doing very well, thank you, and have increased their wealth by masses and masses over this last 3 or 4 years. And the economy is supposedly doing well. So it's not like the economy is tanking, they haven't got any money. It's not that they have no money. It's that they've made choices, and their choices are reactionary, anti-working class, and pro-rich. I hope that honeymoon is short. Now, Blair's honeymoon lasted a couple of years, but in these first couple of weeks, Jordan Brown made the Bank of England independent, gave the capitalists what they want, all of that. But they at least also did some progressive things. They actually put some money in the health service. They did some fundamental things as well as doing rubbish stuff. Where's the progressive stuff coming in this one? They haven't said it yet. We obviously have an autumn statement to come, and the emergency budget, as it practically will be, what it will actually say in that, in practice. What will they cut? Where will the axe fall? We'll find this out, and we'll see how long this Starmer honeymoon lasts.
They were warned during the election campaign that the black hole was bigger than they thought. Martin Lewis warned them about it. They knew it was big. They probably didn't know exactly how big, but they've already made decisions. And I don't disagree with, public sector pay has to be increased. I understand that. But Why can't they do that and tax the billionaires? Tax the fucking billionaires.
They could, but they choose not to.
Tax them. An extra 5% on the highest earners, tax them. It's incredible.
And of course, we could say a lot more about, the reduced SNP presence now down to 9 MPs. And, even though they're small, they're still able to, put that question of the 2-child cap. And it still shows you it's still important to have SNP MPs down there. Otherwise, you would have no opposition. But the fact that Labour MPs who voted with them immediately got suspended and are now outside the party, that will happen to more people. It's an early warning from Starmer. He's not going to tolerate dissent in his ranks. So the Labour left is in a really awkward position where if they want to stand by the principles, they will get kicked out of their party for 6 months at least. And I suspect that Starmer won't let those people back in when their 6 months is up. So we'll be looking for that in the autumn. But let's quickly move on to the biggest international question, which is Palestine. The regional war that looks like it's kicking off as Israel attacks Lebanon. They attacked Iran, of course, and they've also killed the chief Palestinian negotiator, Ismail Haniyeh. What's your thoughts on that?
It could be stopped so easily if America stopped funding Israel. It could. This could end. This could end tomorrow. But I don't understand why it's beneficial to anyone for this to escalate, because it's not just going to be Iran versus Israel. It's going to be Iran and all their allies versus Israel and all their allies. And at a time where Starmer has proven he can't feed the poor and heat the pensioners, can he afford a war?
But also, they're still selling arms to Israel.
They're still selling arms to Israel. His wishy-washy attempts at, calling for a ceasefire. You can't. That ceasefire won't happen if you're still arming the colonizers, the perpetrators. It's not going to happen.
I think that have been sort of hidden in this conflict, or indeed the attacks that Israel has made on Hezbollah in Lebanon. They've killed 400 Hezbollah fighters in the last year, and yet Hezbollah hasn't, in fact, rained Israel down in rockets. Now, anybody would see that Netanyahu, to stay in power, is trying to provoke a war with Iran and its allies in the region, precisely so he can stay in power, and also, of course, to defeat the Palestinian cause. That's what he's all about. He's very nakedly, that's what he's for. And it's not even the far right. The far right are fascistic enough. We've seen just how fascistic that body are, with all those soldiers invading that prison when they tried to arrest the soldiers for raping Palestinian detainees. Under international warrants. Which other state in the world can kidnap the citizens of its neighboring state, which it supposedly recognized, hold them without trial for years and decades, hold children without trial, women and men, young men under the age of 18, non-combatants, hold them, put them on trial, and rape them and abuse their rights in the way that they have done. No other country would get away with that, but Israel does. And it's abhorrent. And the fact that we're participants in that genocide through our government's complicity it's galling. And, I've just met a Palestinian friend of mine this morning, and, just how I feel indignant about it and enraged. And yet, what it must feel like to be a Palestinian right now, as your lives just simply don't matter.
It does put into question all these international treaties and international courts. Is there any point of them if the decisions they make cannot be enacted? How is this going to end? It can only end by one country in particular ending it, and they're not showing any signs of doing that. Even though Kamala Harris did say, a ceasefire. Again, wishy-washy.
Wishy-washy, but downside more said by her than was said by Biden. Interestingly, of course, we're moving on neatly there to the US elections, and the fact that Kamala has got the top spot, and she has already infused women voters, black voters. Hell, she even had 100,000 white dudes on a Zoom call to back her. So she's clearly energized younger voters, black voters, the kind of people that Democrats need to turn up in numbers to win in all the swing states that are important. And the fact that she's now top of the ticket, it brings in states like Georgia, North Carolina, Nevada, much closer, which means Trump will have to spend a lot more time campaigning in those states if he wants to win them. So it's shifted clearly towards the Democrats' advantage if they don't mess it up. But then where's the moral stance from Kamala on the really important issue to younger voters, which is the injustice in Palestine? Now, if she wants to win their votes, she's going to have to step further on that territory. But so far, what I've seen, I have to say I was very doubtful about Kamala's prospects and possibilities myself. But I have to say she's handled it pretty well. She's been very good so far as a candidate, dismissing Trump. And, you know, Trump is obviously very scared of her. But the coalition that she has, which is, as you say, those elements of the population, which is the majority, that's a clear social majority, political majority, they've got a better chance of winning this election.
She's a better choice than Biden. She's a better choice than Trump. She will improve women's rights greatly, which is fantastic. She will do a lot of good in so far as the kind of American angle. She won't stop a genocide. She won't stop selling arms to Israel. She won't do anything positive for that part of the world. Is she better than Trump? Of course, absolutely. But it comes down to, again, the least worst option. For me, anyway, I don't have anything to feel joyful about her winning. Nothing's going to change insofar as policy, foreign policy. She's a change for America, which is fantastic. America under Trump would be horrific, and I can't imagine what it would be like to live there as a woman. So yeah, for American women, people of colour, brilliant. Foreign policy, not so brilliant. The least worst option.
One of the indications, of course, is today is she's apparently going to choose her vice presidential candidate. I haven't seen who she's going to choose yet, but it's down to a couple of, essentially, it's going to be a DEI hire, as Trump says. It's going to be a diversity, equality, and inclusion hire of a white guy to be her running mate in one of these swing states. So I'm all for diversity and equality and inclusion. So, it'd be interesting to see who she picks, which will give you an idea of what her administration's going to be like.
Yeah.
But that's about all. We've done 15 minutes, and this is so much to pack into this week. Of course, next week nothing will happen at all. But
nothing at all. All eyes on England. What a month.
Indeed. I will give you Janis and Graham.
Thank you. Bye-bye.